All right. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to pop on here. I'm doing a live because it allows me to have a little bit more time on here than like a reel or a story or what have you. But I just wanted to pop on here and talk to you guys about something that showed up in our discussions this weekend in the Summer Lab series. Okay. And it was the discussion of spirals and why our tissue tends to lay itself down in spirals. And so we were specifically talking about fascial tissue and scar tissue and this sort of thing. And what we see a lot of the time under the microscope is sort of like this spiraling formation of things. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is that scar tissue does not lay itself down in a really organized fashion, okay? Your body is really brilliant and it's trying to provide structure and stability in the fastest way possible, okay? So scar tissue is your body just kind of throwing fibers down in a disorganized fashion. They're not really responding to forces at that point in time. They're just kind of being laid down as fast as possible because your body wants to go, I got you, I'm gonna hold this together so that we don't have longer issues, okay? But what we see in organized tissue in particular, and actually the way that you were created or the way that you created yourself, because you are a self-made creation, okay, is through spirals, okay? And if you've ever done any embryological study, you will see that you are the most complex, amazing structure of spirals and origami. You really are just this folded tissue. It's really beautiful how we get to be this human being, okay? Now, when we look at spirals in the human body, the easiest way to do that is to look at a long bone, okay? So this is the humerus, okay? So I've taken it off of stand back here. And this is his long bone, his humerus, okay? And can you see that there's actually like this spiraling through the bone here, okay? So this is one side. You can see there's like this spiraling kind of situation happening here. And if I turn it around, maybe you can see it as well here through these ridges, okay? Do you see that? It's this spiraling of the long bone. And this is how the long bones are created, okay? So as the fibers lay themselves down, the bone actually kind of does this torsion through the body, okay? Now, why does this happen? We actually don't fully understand it, okay? There's a lot of theories out there about spirals in the natural world, okay? So we can see spirals all over the place in the natural world, and all you need to do is do a quick Google of spirals in the natural world, like literally those words, and you will come up with all of these different images of like a sunflower, the head of a sunflower, how it spirals. You can see it in a blade of grass as it emerges out of that little shaft as it comes up, right? We have all of these beautiful spirals and we have them in our own body, okay? Galaxies are spirals, all right? Now, if we go really scientific about this, I am not a mathematician, okay? But what I understand is that Fibonacci sequence is where we go 1 + 1 = 2, and then 1 + 2 = 3, and then 2 + 3 = 5, and we add on, you take the number before and add the two together, okay, if that makes sense? And the Fibonacci sequence, when it is laid down in a graph formation, it creates this beautiful spiral, and you can actually overlay that Fibonacci spiral onto galaxies and onto plants as they kind of spiral up in these sorts of formations. All right. Now we think spirals are a relatively structurally sound formation. All right. And that's why, but it's also a compression and tension structure. Okay. Which we know our bodies to be. We are a compression and tension structure, okay? That is what biotensegrity, if you've ever heard me talk about that, biotensegrity is all about, all right? It is the fact that the bones of your skeleton, like Stan over here, if I were to take all of his rivets and his wires and everything like that out of him, he would collapse down into a pile of bones. Likewise, if he was just the soft tissue, he would just collapse down into a kind of a pile of goo, essentially, right? So we need the structure of the bones as well as the soft tissue in order to form this whole being, okay? Now, those structures are created by the same tension compression, all right, in order to create this sort of structure, okay? So we have this spiraling that happens, which helps the tension and compression of the tissues, okay? So, why does any of this matter? Well, when we're talking about cueing in a movement class, traditionally there's been a lot of directional cueing happen, okay? But what we know, so for example, you say the right knee is going to point itself over the first two toes of the right foot, okay? In, let's say, a warrior position, all right? But what we know is that everyone's torsion in their bones is going to be different, right? So as that torsion happens, everyone is going to have a different angle happen from one end of their long bone to the other end, right? So for some people, it's going to be more flat like this. For others, it's going to be like this, right? Like it's going to be all different directions and different angles. We really need to keep that in mind when we are cueing our students. We need to throw out, in my opinion, the directional cueing, all right, and work more with engagement cueing. How does it feel in the tissues when we have stability and engagement, okay? So less about where the direction of the tissues are going and more about how they feel, okay? So it was an interesting discussion that we had this weekend on the summer series because it took us into this area of why we cue in the ways that we do and why we should maybe revisit them, all right? So anyways, that was just kind of a thought that I had about how some of these laws of nature actually show up in a studio class, all right? We don't tend to think of them very often, but when we get down to the nitty-gritty of it, I think it's kind of cool. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you guys really quick. And yeah, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Monday.